Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Science and Tech lecture for Samachar Manthan dated 17th to 24th June. Let's begin. Alright guys, so the first topic is panel identifies 6000 megahertz spectrum for 5G services. Now there are many things in this heading itself which require explanation. For example, many of us may not understand what megahertz is, what spectrum is, what this 5G, 4G, 3G, what they are. So we really need to go into a little bit of detail to understand these things. And I'm going to explain those details right now. But please note that what I'm going to explain now is not technically a part of Samachar Manthan, because Samachar Manthan deals only with current affairs, and that's why the PDF, that is this one that you are getting, will not contain the information that I'm going to share right now. So I would request you to either save this video for future reference or take down your own notes. Alright, now we can begin. What we are going to study now are mind-blowing things. Alright, and it took me about 8 to 10 hours of research to compile and consolidate all this material, and I hope after watching this video you are not going to forget these things in your lifetime. Let's begin with radiation. What is radiation? Simply stated, radiation is energy. Alright, this is the first point. Radiation is energy. It travels through space. That means it doesn't require a medium to travel, but even in case there is a medium, it can pass through it as well. It travels through space in the form of particles or waves. Okay, this is important. So let me consolidate. Radiation is energy that travels in the form of particles or waves. Okay, this is what we have studied till now. The next point is radiation is everywhere. Okay, this is very interesting. Even your body radiates energy. The pen you are holding, the screen on which you are watching this video, everything radiates energy. Now we are going to study in detail later how this happens, but as of now just take it for granted that radiation is everywhere. Fine. Then this part is just an explanation. It is in the air we breathe, the water we drink, etc. Okay, this thing is known as background radiation. Okay, even the chair you are sitting on, it emits radiation. So everything emits radiation, and that's why this is known as background radiation. Okay, so we are all exposed to radiation every single day and everywhere. Now the energy or radiation that is emitted in the form of particles is known as nuclear. Okay, nuclear radiation, and that emitted in the form of waves is known as electromagnetic radiation. Fine. So nuclear radiation is radiated by the nucleus of an atom, and electromagnetic is radiated by electrons. Alright, so please don't freak out with these things. To understand this radiation better, we need to look at the basic building block of matter, that is the atom. Okay, let's see. Alright, so what we have here is the structure of a carbon atom. Alright, so any atom will comprise these elements, that is electron, proton and neutron. Electrons carry a negative charge, protons carry a positive charge, and neutrons don't have any charge. Alright, also protons and neutrons will combine to form the nucleus. Okay, the nucleus of an atom. So this part is the nucleus, and the electrons, they are negatively charged and they keep revolving around the nucleus. Okay, so this revolution of the electrons emits energy, and this energy is known as electromagnetic radiation. Alright. Of course, the intensity of the electromagnetic radiation will depend upon the speed with which the electrons revolve around the nucleus, but it goes without saying that all matter in the universe, because all matter is made up of atoms and atoms comprise electrons, this explains that all matter in the universe, whether you can see it or not, emits electromagnetic radiation. Okay, even ghosts, say if you assume that ghosts exist, if you watch any sort of documentary about people researching on ghosts, you'll find them carrying all those equipment to measure that electromagnetic radiation. All right, so every single thing, every piece of matter in the universe emits electromagnetic radiation. So I hope this concept is clear. Just to make things clearer, I've got this infrared image. So you can see that you can almost delineate all the objects. This is a pole here, okay, maybe a lamp post. Then this is the vehicle, and this vehicle has got different levels of energy. Maybe this part here, the one below engine, is hotter because maybe the vehicle has just arrived, and the interiors of the vehicle are hotter than the exteriors, which are in dark blue color. This person also, you can see that the face is hotter, and the clothes, they are colder comparatively. All right, even the road, okay, let's come to this road. The road is hotter than say this door or something. So this road is hotter because of movement of vehicles. So my basic point is that everything emits energy, and this picture is just a basic illustration of that. So we have seen that electromagnetic radiation is emitted by electrons, and the intensity of the radiation depends upon the speed with which the electrons revolve. The hotter the body, the faster will be the movement of the electrons, that is their revolution, and the more intense will be the electromagnetic radiation. Now we can come to the second type of radiation, that is nuclear radiation. We have already seen that nuclear radiation is energy emitted from the nucleus of an atom. To understand why this happens, we need to study the structure of the nucleus. Now we have already seen that the nucleus comprises protons and neutrons. Protons are positively charged and neutrons do not have any charge. In this picture, this is the nucleus. Now, in basic physics, you must have read that like charges repel each other. Okay, so the protons being positively charged in the nucleus must be repelling each other, and this repulsive force is given the name electromagnetic force. Okay, but if this repulsive force would have been the only force existing in the nucleus could never have existed, because the protons would never have bound together. So this means that there has to exist a more dominating converging or binding force. This force is given the name strong nuclear force. All right, so the nucleus can exist only when the strong nuclear force, that is the converging force, is more than the repulsive force, that is the electromagnetic force. Now the example that we have taken here is of a carbon atom. Please note that in the nucleus of this atom there are 6 protons and 6 neutrons. Now this equality between protons and neutrons in the nucleus is very important. Whenever this equality exists, such atoms are known as stable atoms. All right, but there are many different elements whose protons and neutrons in the nucleus differ, that is they differ in number, and such the differing variants are known as isotopes. Okay, for example, if we take the element hydrogen, it's a very simple element that has got only one proton in its nucleus. So this isotope has got one proton, this isotope has got one proton and one neutron, and the third isotope has got one proton and two neutrons. So this means that all the isotopes will have same number of protons but will have different number of neutrons, and this imbalance between the protons and neutrons leads to the repulsive electromagnetic force getting dominant. All right, and we have already studied that till the time the standard nuclear force, that is the binding force, is dominant, only then the atom can exist, that is the nucleus can exist. So when the electromagnetic force starts to get dominant, the nucleus emits energy, and this energy is known as nuclear radiation. All right, by the way, carbon also has got its own isotopes. You must have come across carbon 14 dating even in your culture, in history, anthropology, many times you come across this term carbon-14 dating. So they are basically referring to the isotope of carbon, and they are measuring the nuclear energy emitted from this isotope. All right, before moving ahead, let's quickly consolidate whatever we have studied so far. So nuclear radiation is radiation or energy emitted from the nucleus of an atom. There are two types of forces in the nucleus. One is the repulsive force, that is called as the electromagnetic force, and the second, the binding force, that is the strong nuclear force. The atom or the nucleus can exist only when the strong nuclear force is more than the electromagnetic force. Now, in stable atoms, that is in nucleuses where protons is equal to the neutrons, this doesn't provide any sort of problems because the strong nuclear force is more dominant here. But when there is an imbalance between the protons and neutrons, that is in isotopes, the electromagnetic force, this is the repulsive force, it starts to get dominating, and thus it threatens the integrity of the nucleus. And to maintain its existence, the nucleus emits your radiation or energy, and this energy is known as nuclear radiation. This phenomena of release of nuclear energy or radiation from the nucleus is known as radioactivity, and the elements which release such emissions or energy are known as radioactive elements. Now, nuclear radiation is of three types: alpha, beta and gamma. The first two of them, that is alpha and beta, are in the nature of particles, okay, and the third is in the nature of a ray. This means that the first two, that is alpha and beta, get released from the nucleus in the form of particles, and the third gets released in the form of a wave because it is a ray. And wave means electromagnetic radiation. That is why gamma rays or gamma radiation is shown in the electromagnetic spectrum. We'll see it later when we see the when we study the electromagnetic spectrum. All right, let's now focus on these three nuclear radiations. Now, alpha particle, let me please rub this part. All right. So alpha particle comprises two protons and two neutrons. Okay, let us assume that in this atomic nucleus the black elements are protons and the white ones are neutrons. So two protons and two neutrons will combine to form an alpha particle, and this will be released by an unstable nucleus. Okay, in order to become stable, it will be released by an unstable nucleus. This particle is known as alpha particle. Now, quite naturally, because it has got two protons and two neutrons, it is going to be heavy, and heavy compared to the beta particle. Beta particle means release of a negatively charged particle, which means an electron. Now you will question that previously I had stated that the nucleus comprises only protons which are positively charged and neutrons which have no charge. How can this beta particle, which is actually an electron, be released from the nucleus? Now the reason is that these neutrons, they break to form protons and electrons. All right, so this is the electron which gets released from the nucleus. So this is the beta particle, and because it is only one electron, it will naturally be lighter than the alpha particle. All right, so let's come to this diagram. So we can see that alpha particle has got two protons and two neutrons. Then you'll see something known as ionization ability. Alright, so let me just explain what ionizing radiation is. Basically, we have seen that the atom is going to comprise a nucleus and will have electrons moving around about the nucleus. So ionizing radiation means the radiation which has the power to knock off these electrons which move around the atom, the nucleus, I'm sorry. Okay, so ionizing radiation can knock out these electrons, and you do not want to be in the way of ionizing radiation, because then your body will simply disintegrate. All right, so out of these three, that is alpha, beta and gamma, we can see that alpha has got the strongest ionization ability. Then as we move ahead, beta will have lesser than alpha, and gamma will have the least ionizing ability. And when we see the penetrating ability, alpha particle has got the least, that is, it can be stopped even by a piece of paper. And beta has got a higher penetration power, it can be stopped by aluminium, however. And the most penetrating power has got gamma has got it, and like lead, something like lead is required to stop gamma radiation. This phenomena, that is the release of alpha, beta and gamma radiation, is known as radioactive decay. So we have seen that radiation is of two types. One is nuclear radiation, which we have already studied, and the other is electromagnetic radiation. Now we'll focus on this. Alright, so we have seen that electromagnetic radiation is energy that travels in the form of waves. Alright, so in this diagram we have the electromagnetic wave depicted by this pink color. There are two things that are being mentioned here. One is cycle and another is wavelength. So cycle means one complete wave. Okay, so a total, that is an electromagnetic wave, is just a replication of multiple cycles. So cycle can be said to be the unit measure of an electromagnetic wave. So this cycle is represented by this AB. Okay, this distance between A and B, that is one trough, that is the downward movement, and a crest, that is an upward movement. When these two get combined, it is known as a cycle. Okay, so I hope this term is clear. The other term is wavelength. Wavelength means length of the wave, and it is measured by you can either measure the distance between two consecutive troughs, that is the lower parts. Here I have represented it by X and Y, or you can even measure it by two consecutive crests, that is this part, and if we extend this wave like this, so this part will be here. So these two also can be measured. This is known as wavelength. Okay, let me just clear the screen a bit, then we can see the link between cycle and wavelength. Just a second please. Alright, now we can see that there is a direct relation between the cycle of a wave and its wavelength. That is, the larger the cycle, the larger will be its wavelength. Okay, I think it is clear from this diagram itself. Now we can study what is known as frequency. ठीक है, वो स्पेक्ट्रम फ्रीक्वेंसी होता है ना in the telecom circles and spectrum allocation. We often come across this word frequency. So what does it mean? Frequency basically means the number of cycles, wave cycles per second. Okay, so we have already studied what wave cycle is. So the number of these cycles per second is known as the frequency of that wave. So please come to this part. Let me rub it again. Okay, it takes time, but at least it gives you clarity. Alright, so if I make a bigger wave, say for example this wave, okay, this is one cycle, so one crest and one trough. So one cycle per second will be 1 hertz. Frequency is measured in hertz, so one cycle per second means 1 hertz. If there are 10 cycles per second, it will mean 10 hertz. Similarly, 1 kilohertz means 10 raised to power 3 cycles per second, which means 1000 cycles per second. All right, let me just make it more clear here. So if it was 1 hertz, we had seen that it was like this, one cycle, but if it is 2 hertz, it will be like this. Okay, two crests and two bottoms. So that means 1000 hertz, that is 1 kilohertz, is going to have 1000 like this crest and bottom. So 1000 crest will be there and 1000 bottoms will be there. So what I'm trying to figure out, trying to tell you here, is that there is an inverse relation between wavelength or wave cycle and its frequency. Inverse relation means if we increase the wavelength or wave cycle, its frequency is going to reduce, because larger wavelength will mean a bigger wave, and bigger wave will mean in 1 second less number of cycles will pass through it, and smaller wavelength or smaller cycles means a wave will be like this and more number of cycles can pass through 1 second. So this inverse relation between wave cycle, there is inverse relation between wave cycle and wave frequency. All right, now we can understand these two pictures. Let us name them as picture 1, the top one, and picture 2, the bottom one. So both of them reflect the electromagnetic frequency spectrum. Okay, so this is the entire range of electromagnetic waves, and this entire spectrum is divided in various smaller spectrums, smaller size or smaller bands, you can say. So let us see, let us start from figure 2. All right, so it is extremely low frequency and very low frequency. So these two green zones can be depicted here. This green part, which is in fact let us include the yellow part also. 60 hertz and lower can be called as your extremely low and very low frequency. The very low frequency is used by desktop computers as well. Then we come into another band known as radio frequency band. This is used for telecommunication, satellite communication, radio communication, etc. And this band is here. Okay, within this radio frequency we also have a subsection known as microwaves. Okay, so this is another band. Once please notice that come here, you will see kilohertz. Kilohertz means 10 raised to power 3 cycles per second. Megahertz means 10 raised to power 6 cycles per second. Gigahertz means 10 raised to power 9 cycles per second. So if you see this part, this is the wavelength or wave cycle. So as we are increasing in frequency, the wave, that is the cycle, is reducing. The wavelength is reducing and it is getting more and more energetic. All right, so we were here in microwaves. So after that we have infrared. So infrared is here in the top figure. So I had shown you that infrared picture also earlier in this video. Post infrared we have the visible spectrum. All right, so please notice that visible spectrum is between 10 raised to power 14 to 10 raised to power 16 cycles per second. Okay, so this is in itself pretty high. All right, so this is the visible part. After the visible spectrum we enter the ultraviolet section. So ultraviolet section is after that is beyond 10 raised to power 16 cycles per second. These cycles are not important. I'm just taking their taking their name because just to give you a hint. So when we study the PDF, you will understand what is 5400 megahertz or those figures. Right? Just to give you a context. So after ultraviolet radiation we have X-rays. These are even stronger waves. Then we have gamma rays. See this nuclear, so nuclear radiation it is. So we had already seen that gamma rays are not particles, they are waves, and that is why they are in the electromagnetic spectrum. So gamma rays in the top figure here, and then we have the cosmic rays. So these are the highest frequency waves, okay, that we receive from the universe. The other thing which we need to see is this part, ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. So I had told you earlier that ionizing radiation is that which has the power to knock off electrons from the atom. So non-ionizing radiation are the lower frequency, less harmful. These are not harmful at all for biological organisms. So non-ionizing radiations are these, but ionizing radiation are harmful. They have the power to knock out electrons and they begin beyond the visible spectrum. Okay, so ultraviolet radiation is the first ionizing radiation. Then we have X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays, etc. The last thing that I want to tell you before moving ahead with the PDF is that the impact that electromagnetic waves have on living organisms is measured in sieverts. Okay, so this is just a unit of measurement which measures the impact of electromagnetic waves on biological organisms. So this can be asked in PT. Aren't you happy by seeing this PDF? Finally you would be thinking that the video is coming to an end now. Alright, so this topic stated that panel identifies 6000 megahertz spectrum for 5G. ठीक है, तो megahertz का मतलब है 6000 megahertz will mean 6 gigahertz, and gigahertz come to this part, this is 2 gigahertz, so 6 gigahertz will be somewhere here and it falls in the microwave spectrum. Alright, so this is 6 gigahertz. Alright, then for 5G it is 6 gigahertz, so you should know that around this frequency you can get 5G services. Also please see this term band. Okay, so band basically means a range of the frequency. So if it is 3 to 30 kilohertz, then 30 to 300 kilohertz, etc. Okay, basically band means a range, very high frequency, ultra high frequency, super high frequency. So wherever you see the term band, you can understand now that it means a range in the frequency spectrum. Alright, now let us move ahead. So this topic is important from science and tech part of view. I have discussed the science part, now we'll be discussing the technology part. For mains level, 5G communication in India becomes important. So the news, it says that a committee of telecom ministry has said that about 6 gigahertz of spectrum can be made available for the 5G part. We'll also see one more picture which discusses the various Gs, basically like 1G, 2G, 3G. Here G stands for generation, so first generation, second generation, third generation, like that. Alright, then there is nothing really important here, or something which you'll not understand if you read the document yourself. Let us come to this part, the 11 bands part. So at present mobile phone signals in the country are in this range, okay, 800 megahertz to itna megahertz. You can understand it easily, I believe. 5G services will be rolled across 11 bands, and out of these 4 bands are already available. So these are the 4 bands. Although PT will not really ask you which 4 bands are there, but I think now because of the logic that you will be understanding it, it will not be very difficult to remember it in case you wish to remember. Then here panel estimates that itna megahertz of spectrum can be made available. Okay, not a very important point. So I believe you've got the basic idea about these things. Let us study the various Gs, okay, the various generations. So come to this part. See, 1G, first generation. So this was this phone which is of the size of a brick, and this was the speed. So this person here is just starting to run. Then we come to those 2G phones, those born in the 90s kid. I'm one of them. So these are the phones which are quite popular in the during our time. So the speed is better than 1G, but then again not very fast. Then we come to the Apple generation, iPhone, 3G phones. So internet is there. You can call, you can do internet, you can do texting. Okay, so this person has just started to run 2 Mbps speed. Today 2 Mbps is nothing. Okay, we are used to 4G now. So 4G is like Apple iPhone 8 or something. So you can make calls, you can do messages, you can scan or surf the internet, and you can also watch videos. All right, so the speed here is much higher, that is 100 Mbps. And now we are talking about 5G, ladies and gentlemen. This is even higher, more than 1 Gbps. Okay, this is pretty amazing. That's why this person is on this rocket. So 1 Gbps will mean you can do Internet of Things, all sorts of things which you can imagine can be done with 5G. So it is going to be pretty amazing when we have 5G rollout in India. The next topic is about Dhanush artillery guns, which have cleared final trials. So this is again a science and tech topic. Let's discuss it in the next slide. Alright, so from UPSC perspective for prelims, you need to know about artillery, this artillery gun, that is Dhanush. A map based question asking you to locate Pokhran or Siachen, not exactly locate, but directly or indirectly map based question can be there. So please open your atlases and locate them. Acha, just to tell you about the atlases, there are two prominent ones which are available in the market. One is Oxford Student Atlas and the other is Orient Black Swan Atlas. So you need to buy both of them. The Orient Black Swan is for your world geography, it is good, and Oxford Student Atlas is for your Indian geography. So you should refer Oxford Student for Indian maps and for world map Orient Black Swan. Okay, then about Dhanush, it is indigenously upgraded. Okay, it is not indigenously developed. So iska dhyan rehna hai. Upgraded from Swedish Bofors gun. So this is its predecessor. About 80% of the content in Dhanush is indigenous. Then coming to the testing part, the first phase testing was done in Pokhran and in Babina ranges. Again, locate these two. The second phase was done in Siachen. So basically they're trying to test in various geographical temperature ranges, etc. So it seems to have done well. The next topic is Indian plant seed could bring clean water to millions. So anything related to water becomes important. This particular topic is definitely important for prelims. That is the Moringa oleifera plant, F sand. These two topics are for important for prelims, but for mains also you can cite it as example of innovative methods to deal with water pollution. All right, so this can be a good point. Let's come to the details. It says that this plant, the Moringa oleifera plant, also known as drumstick tree, it can help in your water purification. What is interesting is that its seeds are already being used for rudimentary water purification, but now it has been found that the proteins of these plants can also be used for water purification. The other thing is that this plant is currently cultivated for food and natural oils. So PT can trick you by asking that it is a wild variety of a plant or wild plant. This will not be true. It is a domesticated plant. The next thing is that it is native to India. About F sand, so it is basically a cheap and effective water filtration medium. All right, it was created by extracting seed proteins from the same plant, and these proteins were attached to the surface of silica particles. Okay, so this is how this F sand was created, and the result was that this sand could kill microorganisms and reduce turbidity. So this is good. The next topic is government teams up with Google for flood warning. Alright, so this is a science and tech topic, and for prelims these things, Central Water Commission, IMD, artificial intelligence, machine learning, geospatial mapping are important. For mains, flood management and planning becomes important. So let's come to the details. So how is it going to tell about flood warning? Warning means it is going to tell before the floods happen. Okay, so Union Water Resources Ministry has teamed up with Google to generate these warnings. Google is going to use Google Maps, okay, and the users can see where it is likely that waterlogging will happen. Now technology will be shared with CWC, and Google will share its technical expertise in the fields of artificial learning, machine learning, geospatial mapping. This will be done through analysis of hydrological observation data. Okay, this data will be provided by CWC and it will be analyzed by Google and shared with the population. Then Google Earth Engine will be used for this purpose. Also, the present system of warning it is CWC which releases the warnings based on rising water levels in reservoirs. Alright, so basically it is an obsolete way of giving warnings compared with what Google is promising to do. Then also IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, provides inputs to CWC about heavy rainfall, that is likelihood of heavy rainfall. So it helps to improve the prediction accuracy of flood warnings. The next topic is Aadhaar virtual IDs becoming a real problem for NBFCs. So we'll study it in the next slide. Alright, this picture is important. The first point states that Aadhaar is a 12-digit number. Alright, this is important. Don't confuse it with your ATM and your credit card numbers, which are 16-digit. Aadhaar is a 12-digit number, but the virtual ID will be a 16-digit number and it will be temporary. Okay, this is very, very important. Then virtual ID can be generated any number of times, and it can be generated from the UIDAI website. Okay. Then the Aadhaar details, that is not the virtual ID, the original Aadhaar details, they will be shared with service providers for KYC, know your customer norms, on need-based basis. So this is the whole thing. This video has already become quite longish, guys, so I'm going to skip these points in all the subsequent topics because these are mainly self-explanatory, so you can go through them yourself. Let's come to the details here. So what is important is, earlier what happened was, every entity, every type of business organization could get access to Aadhaar data for eKYC norms. So what this led to was that this obviated the need of physical verification. That is, until recently you would have seen that if you want to take a SIM card or if you want to take some sort of internet hotspot, anything like that, the internet guy will simply ask you to put a thumb on that machine, and eKYC was done automatically and your SIM card would get activated almost immediately. But because of privacy concerns regarding sharing of original Aadhaar data, the entire data, now UIDAI has said that virtual IDs will have to be accepted, and these will be accepted by local AUAs. Okay, I'll just tell you what AUA is. AUA means Authentication User Agency. Okay, there are two types of AUAs, one is global and one is local. Global AUAs will be allowed access to original, that is the entire Aadhaar data, but local AUAs have to accept virtual IDs. So let us just see these. So see, the global AUAs comprise banks and life insurers only. So this is important, can be asked in PT. And the local AUAs, these are other types of firms like NBFCs, home finances, prepaid instruments, etc., telecom companies. So these are the local AUAs. Okay, so they have to accept Aadhaar virtual ID. So now the problem is that these local AUAs, they are claiming that it is going to increase the cost of acquiring new customers because now they will have to do physical verification as well. Okay, so in addition to virtual ID, because virtual ID will not give the entire Aadhaar data, they will have to perform physical verification of customers, and this is going to increase their cost of acquiring them. Also, because UIDAI has not yet publicized the virtual ID system, this thing, that is marketing of this virtual ID, will have to be done by these firms, and this is again going to increase their cost of acquiring customers. So that's all, and this point we have missed. It just says that virtual IDs will give these firms access to limited details. Okay, so that will be all in this topic. The next topic is, in a first, WHO recommends quadrivalent influenza vaccine. So we will be discussing it in the next slide. Alright, so the first thing we need to study is influenza virus. Now it is a single-stranded RNA virus. Okay, so the difference between DNA and RNA is, like, DNA is double-stranded like this. Alright, then it is like this. RNA is single-stranded like this. Alright, so This is the influenza virus, and it comes from the Orthomyxoviridae family. Okay, whatever is the name, I hope I pronounce it correctly, but it comes from this family, and there are three types of influenza viruses: alpha, beta, and Charlie. The subtype of alpha is determined by these two things, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. Okay, so this can be asked in PT. Then let's talk about the subtypes. So type A, it can cause moderate to severe illness, all age groups. Okay, this is important, and in both humans and animals. Coming to type B, it doesn't cause as severe illness as type A, that is, it causes milder diseases, but it primarily affects humans only, also children. Then type C virus, rarely reported in humans. Okay, this is important, can be asked in PT, and because it is rarely reported in humans, no epidemics usually come from this. Then let's come directly to our issue. So the quadrivalent vaccine approved. So quadri means 4. Okay, tri means 3, quadri means 4. So let's see what these 4 types are. This vaccine has been produced by this Sanofi Pasteur, and it is injectable. Okay, it is injectable. Then you don't need to know the name of the vaccine. This quadrivalent means there are 2 alpha virus strains and 2 bravo virus strains. Okay, the alpha virus strains are H1N1 and H3N2, and bravo B virus strains are Victoria and Yamagata. So this point is very important, can be asked in PT. Then it has been approved by the DGCI. So this is the body which approves such things. Then the next point that we need to study is this, the trivalent influenza vaccine. So it comprised of both A subtypes. So trivalent means 3. So out of 3, 2 came from alpha influenza subtypes and 1 came from the bravo subtype. All right. The quadrivalent naturally offers greater breadth. Okay, this is because of an additional bravo subtype, so it offers greater width, greater coverage. The last 2 points, these are important. So viruses used in the vaccine are killed. Okay, this is important. These are killed viruses, and this eliminates the possibility of the vaccine itself causing infection. So this is why killed viruses are used. And 4th point is, in India it is available as single dose pre-filled syringe. Okay, this is also that can be asked. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, the first point is important. It states that in the case of H1N1 there are 2 strains, California and Michigan. In India, the Michigan strain existed earlier but has been replaced by California strain. For 2018, the WHO has recommended Michigan strain for Southern Hemisphere, including India. So this is important. It can be asked in PT. Then each year, the influenza vaccine, it changes to reflect the different strains that are in circulation. Okay, this is important. So there is no one fixed vaccine for influenza. All right. Then India does not have a national policy for influenza immunization. Also, Ministry of Health issues guidelines only for H1N1 vaccination. So this is also that can be asked. Lastly, if we want to reduce influenza burden in adults, we have to target children, that is immunize them, because children act as reservoirs. Now we can study the back to basics part. So influenza is a virus. Okay, this is the first point, it can be asked. Then it has got multiple strains. Okay, many different types of strains are there, but these strains can be classified in 3 broad categories: alpha, beta and Charlie. Okay, alpha, A, B and C. So let's talk about influenza A. Now this is the most common cause of diseases in humans. Fine. These viruses are broken down into H and N subtypes, and there are 16 H subtypes and 9 n subtypes, but only 3 combinations have actually been very contagious. These 3 are H1N1, H2N2 and H3N2. Okay, you need to remember these. Then these influenza viruses are also named using these criteria. So the first is host of origin, like swine flu, chicken, etc. Then geographical location is also used, strain number is also used, and year of discovery. Coming to influenza B, okay, so it is less common, that is mainly responsible for seasonal flu, and this is a point that we have already covered, that is quadrivalent flu vaccine contains 2 strains of influenza B, but the traditional vaccine, that is the trivalent vaccine of influenza, contains only 1 strain of B and 2 strains of A. Okay, so just a reminder. Then influenza B is not broken down into subtypes, okay, like influenza A, but it is broken down into individual strains. This is a very important point, can be asked. Finally, we have a news related to environment. I too had got bored of discussing science for the last 40 minutes or so. Alright, so the issue is mammals go nocturnal to avoid humans, a study has found. So the first thing to notice is that it focuses on mammals and not on other kinds of animals. The second is that these mammals, they are going nocturnal, which means there is a behavioral change. All right, and though for prelims this is not very important, but for mains, for the issue of man-animal conflict, this news can be used. My God, isn't it a beautiful animal? Okay, let's just focus on the details. So the first point simply states this one, that human activity is causing mammals to flee daylight, that is, it is creating a more nocturnal natural world. All right, then this part is something which is interesting. Is animal nocturnality good? Okay, so temporarily, like in the short term, it can be said that it is going to avoid man-animal conflicts, but in the long run there are many negative externalities. Okay, because mammals are basically, they are not nocturnal, so changing such huge shifts in behavior, the negative consequences include these mismatches between environment and an animal's traits, okay, disruption of their normal behavior, increased vulnerability to non-human predators. Alright, so this can bring in changes, and in fact even for your conservation efforts also, some challenges, some new unanticipated challenges might crop up. So let's move on to the next slide. The next topic is very interesting. It is zero budget natural farming. Okay, the name itself is so intriguing. See, it is zero budget, so that means no problem of costing, that is input cost, and it is natural farming, so all organic. So it's such a beautiful concept, important for both prelims and mains, as well as for your life as well. I mean, it's something which should be interesting you greatly. Okay, so it was in news because Andhra has become the first state to implement this policy. All right, it is this means, that is the zero budget natural farming means a chemical free method and method of farming, and Andhra is going to cover all its farmers by 2024. The next important point is this one. So it states that this farming, this technique is going to have positive ramifications on many sustainable development goals criteria. So these are given here, just go through them. This part is interesting. Natural farming means do nothing farming. The farmer really doesn't have to do anything. It is a no-till method. So there is no tilling. This is an important point, can be asked in prelims. There will be no tilling. There will be no use of chemical fertilizers, and nature's principles will be applied. Okay. This gentleman, Subhash Palekar, from Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, has developed the zero budget natural farming. So Subhash Palekar has identified that only locally available materials are required for zero budget natural farming. These material include seeds treated with cow dung urine, soil rejuvenated with cow dung, all right, cow urine and other locally available products. So you can go through the list. The basic idea is that the farmer doesn't really need to depend on chemical fertilizers or genetically modified seeds or whatnot. Basically, the farmer gets freed from the from dependence on corporates. Okay, this is a huge issue in India, and let's see the benefits of this type of farming. Yields are higher than your chemical farming, okay, for both cash and food crops. Okay, let's see the next point. Input costs are near zero because the materials really don't cost that much, and they are locally available and they are plentiful as well. All right, then there will be profits because input costs are minimal and yields are high. Then these crops can also withstand natural calamities, droughts, flooding, etc. All right, and then there is reduced use of water and electricity, improved health of farmers, etc. Local ecosystems benefit. So isn't this concept, it's almost like a utopia. So this gentleman Subhash Palekar should be awarded a Nobel Prize for this year. All right, the next topics, that these 2 points, you can study them on your own. They are simply self-explanatory points, simple, and they are important only for mains, not really for prelims. The next topic is NASA unveils program to defend Earth from asteroid attack. Let's study it in the next slide. Alright guys, so for prelims you need to focus on the International Asteroid Warning Network, that is the IAWN, as well as the DART mission. Okay, DART stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test. For mains, you need to study about the threats posed by near Earth objects and the scientific measures to control them. Alright, so this point only, this thing is important, that the International Asteroid Warning Network and the UN. So this means that these two bodies are not the same. Okay, the IAWN is not a part of the UN, though it is affiliated or associated with it. Then about the NEO threat, NASA has documented about 96% of the objects large enough to cause a catastrophe on the Earth. So these are about 3 lakh objects, and the size to penetrate the atmosphere and reach the Earth's surface has to be at least 40 meters wide. Okay, so this is important. Then about this DART mission, so the goal of this mission is to impact smaller moonlet of a binary asteroid called Didymos. Okay, so a smaller piece or moonlet, I mean something which revolves around this bigger asteroid, you can say that. So it will be, this moonlet will be impacted, and this is the asteroid whose moonlet will be impacted. So both of them are important, and the DART mission is to be completed by 2021-22. In the back to basics part, we are going to study about the IAWN. Alright, the IAWN was established in 2014. It is an international association of institutions involved in detecting, tracking and characterizing NEOs, that is the near Earth objects. So the first responsibility of IAWN is to provide accurate and up-to-date information about NEOs. Alright, and this information is freely available to all interested parties. So the first point is information gathering and dissemination. The second point is it helps the various governments of the world in analyzing the NEO impact threats and dealing with mitigation responses. So the second is helping the member governments. All right, then the next point is that it was endorsed by the UN Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space and the UN General Assembly. Okay, the next issue is India to teach satellite technology to students from abroad. From UPSC perspective, for prelims, these two things, that is UNSSP and Unispace plus 50, are important. For mains, this particular news is not directly related, but you can quote it as example in any of the questions related to prestige of India, etc. All right. So let's dive right into the details. Now, ISRO will be teaching foreign students, and it will be starting this year, that is in 2018, and will continue for the next 3 years. 90 qualifying engineers will be taught, and they will be taught to how to build satellite and also test 3 small satellites every year. Okay, so this is important. ISRO's Bangalore based UR Rao Satellite Center will be the implementing agency. The next is this one, Indo-UN Small Satellite Program, that is the UNSSP that we had seen earlier. So it is the name given to the training proposal. Okay, and the request for this training proposal was made by the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. All right. Also, 2018 marks the 50th anniversary of the first UN conference on exploration and peaceful uses of outer space. So that is why it is known as Unispace plus 50. 3 such conferences have been held earlier, and these conferences have laid out the guidelines for human activities and international cooperation in outer space. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Finally, we have come to the last topic of this video, guys. So it is about world's first international center for humanitarian forensics. Okay, this center has been launched in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. So this is a proud moment for the country. The first point is that this center is a joint venture between the regional delegation of the ICCR. ICCR stands for International Committee of Red Cross, and the Gujarat Forensic Sciences University. Okay, key facts include that the center will help in using forensics for humanitarian efforts. Okay, so this will help in identifying dead bodies, their proper management, etc. The next point, this center will conduct various academic and professional courses in this field. Also, the GSFU, that is the Gujarat Forensic Sciences University, this should be GFSU. Okay, it will also run different courses on the same topic. Then about this university, it is the world's first and only university dedicated to forensics and allied sciences. So very important point. Secondly, despite being the world's first such university, it is a state government university. Okay, so it was established by the State Legislative Assembly, a law passed by the State Legislative Assembly. All right, it is located in Gandhinagar, and it is recognized by the UGC as a state university under the UGC Act. All right, the objective is to fulfill the acute shortage of forensic experts in India as well as in the world. This will be the end of the video, guys. Hope you liked it. In case of any doubt, please contact me on Telegram. I'm Rakesh, and until next week, take care. Bye bye.